of the webinar today. So Mr. Raihan Rahman completed his undergrad in ELT from Independent University Bangladesh. He went for higher studies in University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, and he completed his master's in TESOL there with full scholarship. He has made me proud of him, okay? And he made me further proud by joining another Arizona University for his doctoral journey. He is now a doctoral student, PhD student at Northern University of Arizona. He has keen interest in research and he wants to contribute to the community in Bangladesh. He always asks me, sir, how can I deliver? And this is an opportunity how Raihan is trying to share his knowledge on how theoretical framework should be constructed, how it should be selected, and how it should be implemented in the research projects. So this is a fascinating topic, and I'm so glad that Raihan accepted my offer, my request, and he has agreed and he has prepared himself very well. So please listen to him and learn from him. If you have any questions, please share your question in the chat box once he completes the presentation. So there will be a session of question answer for 10-15 minutes. So Rahan, you'll get around 45 minutes. So to complete 50 minutes to complete your presentation, then please invite the participants for question answers. Then we'll have very interactive sessions. The floor is all yours, Raihan. All the best wishes. Please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. Please let me know if the slide is in a full screen mode and everybody can see it clearly, because I cannot see the participants anymore now. Sir, can you confirm if is the slide in full screen mode?
Perfect. Quite vividly visible. All right, you can go ahead.
All right. Again, please, if you guys have any question at any point of the slide, please feel free to write it in the chat. I will reply or sir can reply. That's fine. So I guess good evening or assalamu alaikum everyone. Shubho Shandha. Thank you so much for being here tonight. My name is Raihan, and as sir was saying, I'm a PhD student in Applied Linguistics at Northern Arizona University, and I did my master's in teaching English as a second language from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Before I start, I want to say something important. I think many of you are just like me. I was super scared and afraid of the whole field of this research, the so many vocabulary that I'll be throwing today, theoretical framework, research, this and that. Don't be scared. You should be proud that you are already here and you are joining this discussion. And English is our second language. We should be proud of it. It's not our deficiency that we're not speaking like the white American people, but we should be proud that we can speak multiple languages. So be proud, be confident, and again, feel free to ask questions. There's no shame in asking there's no stupid question. Every question is a great question. And as a researcher, as a practitioner, as a teacher, that's what we do. We ask questions. So tonight we are going to talk about theoretical framework. I request you to please mute your microphone, and if you want to ask a question, then you can unmute yourself, but otherwise there's an echo going on. So please keep your microphones muted, and so that you can follow along with me. So tonight we are going to talk about theoretical framework and in research. I know that sounds big, scary, and like a huge topic to conquer, but I promise you, by the end of tonight, not by the end of tonight, by the end of my presentation, you will understand, at least you will gain confidence about what a theoretical framework is, why you need one, what is this about, how to choose one. This is a very complex topic, by the way, and I don't expect you to learn everything by the end of this 50-minute presentation. People do masters and even PhD and still they keep thinking about it, they keep debating about it. So don't worry if you don't get it, even after hearing everything I said tonight. You're perfectly fine. So let me tell you what you will not do tonight. We will not memorize any definitions. We will not just listen and forget. We will basically change our mindset about research. And this presentation has been designed in a way so that if you have zero experience, literally zero, absolutely zero experience in any research, anything, this will help you to get a good foundation. So if you're already in a research publishing, great. So some of the things maybe you will find you already know, but please bear with me. I think there are some students here who wants to gain confidence, get inspiration how to do a research. So I will focus largely for that audience. Okay, so 3 takeaways from my presentation tonight. What are you going to gain from my presentation? Well, of course, we will understand what theoretical framework is and why every study needs one. How reading the literature, and the word literature here means not like, let's say, English literature, which is like a fiction, but more like a journal published scientific article. So how reading the journal scientific article leads to research question, not the other way around. And I'll keep saying that throughout my entire presentation. How to choose from 5 common SLA frameworks for your own research. So that's pretty much it, 3 things. So if you, again, leave tonight understanding these 3 things, this webinar was worth your time and your registration fee. So with that, let's start. Let's start with something very basic. What is science? Feel free to write in the chat if you have any understanding of what science is to you. If I study a computer science, am I a scientist? And if I study languages, am I not a scientist? Interesting question, right? So the dictionary definition is here. I literally copied it from Merriam-Webster and Oxford Dictionary. So science, it's a noun. It means a system of knowledge covering general truths obtained and tested through scientific method. A department of systematized knowledge as an object of study, something that may be studied or learned like systematized knowledge. So science, it's a knowledge we get or we gain through observation and repeated testing, not through guessing from our head, not through our personal opinion, through observation and testing. And if I test and find something, and if some other researcher tests and they should find the same thing, that's the idea. Now, you might ask, we came here to understand theoretical framework. Why am I starting with science? Because research is science. And when you do research, you are doing science. You are observing something, you are asking a question about it, and you are testing to find some answer. And we hope that if somebody else also tests your same research project, they will find the same thing or similar thing at least. So many of you think science basically means, I don't know, chemistry, physics, mathematics in a laboratory, but linguistics is also a science. Language science. So studying how people learn languages, how we can better help our students to learn English, how we can better train our teachers to learn English or teach English. That's the science we are dealing with here. It's a very systematic way of approaching and finding some knowledge. So now let me show how that method works. So here's the steps of scientific method. And as you can see, I have a circular method here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items in a circle. So here's how a typical scientific method or step-by-step way to do a science works. Let's do a science together now. So it starts with an observation or a question. So you see something Then you ask a question. Then you research what others have found. You read journal articles, not newspaper or blogs, but published scientific papers about the question you have. And then you come with a hypothesis. This is the first word for today, the first vocabulary for you guys. What is a hypothesis again? So I apologize that I'll be throwing a lot of probably new words to you. So just bear with me. There's no quiz after this webinar. So just relax and follow me along. So the word hypothesis, it simply means a guess, an educated guess, a guess based on what you read here. And then when you have a guess, you are testing it with experiment. And you experiment, you test it, and you analyze the data, you get some results, and then you report your findings. And that's another study done, and somebody will again come along, ask a question, and the cycle of science will keep going. Or maybe you will never find the perfect answer for your question, and so you will keep running through this circle. So it's an endless process. Now, another vocabulary of the day, empirical. What does that mean? That means based on observation or experience rather than theory or pure logic. So I hope everybody can see this word. So it means based on observation or experience, not based on what you personally think, not based on how you feel about it, based on what you can see, measure, test, and somebody can also test it. So there is a key difference, as you are seeing, between your personal opinion and research. An opinion might sound like, I think group work in a classroom is very good for practicing English. But research says, let's say, I observed and tested group activities or group work. I measured what happened, and here's what I found. So that's how it works. Let me ask you a question for the first question for today in the chat box, and please respond there. Just a second. Let me copy it. Okay, here's the first question for you. Actually, I asked already probably many questions, but here's one engagement question, because when you are watching a webinar, sometimes we get distracted, we get nervous, we get, we are distracted. So I made some engagement questions. So feel free to engage with it, answer them. And if you answer them, you'll feel like you are learning actually much better. So please open your chat box. If you click on the chat button, there will be a side screen coming with a chat option, and where you can type your answers or see other people's answer. Feel free to reply with that. So the first question I asked is that in your classroom, if you're teaching or if you're a student, what is one thing you observed about your students' English that you find puzzling or interesting or worth, let's say, researching? Maybe you can talk about that. Okay. So let's continue. Now, let's talk about that interesting word I just mentioned, hypothesis, a very important word, a very interesting word as well. What does that mean? A hypothesis is a proposed explanation for an observable event. So I think for new researchers, or if you're a student, you just memorize it for your life, for your research. So a hypothesis is something, as I said, it's an educated guess, but the catch is here that it must be testable and reproducible. Someone else can check it. And if repeatedly confirmed by independent experiments, a hypothesis becomes a scientific theory. So a hypothesis is tested, a theory is trusted. So your hypothesis must be testable, so that we can check if it's true or false. It must be reproducible. so that we can rely on it. So if your hypothesis is repeatedly proven by other researcher or at least found similar results, it slowly becomes a scientific theory. So a theory is just an educated guess somebody had, a great scientist had, and they tested their idea so many times that now, and so many times it survived, nobody proved it wrong, and that's how it became a very good theory. Now, let's experiment with something real. Otherwise, you will not be able to connect it with your personal research projects. Here's an example from Bangladesh, let's say. Let me show you the scientific method in your classroom that you might recognize. So imagine, for example, there is an English teacher in Dhaka, Bangladesh. She teaches class 8 English. She notices something. All her students scored 80% on a grammar test, but cannot ask for directions in English. High score in grammar, but very low performance in speaking English ability. She's so confused now. That's her observation. And now this is her question. She's so confused. She's like, why can my students pass written grammar exams with such a high score but cannot speak? What's the problem here? And this is a puzzling phenomenon. This is a confusing phenomenon for her. And so then she starts reading. She goes to Google Scholar or any journal article, and she searches about it. Why high score in grammar doesn't produce high speaking ability. So that's the third step. She reads about them. And she notices something, for example, let's say what other researchers have found. Let's say a scholar named Rahman found the same issue and talked about it. Another scholar from 10 years ago named, let's say, Karim, found something about it. Then this year, let's say someone named Hamid found something about it. What she's understanding is that when she read what others have found about this area, she notices that she is not the only person thinking about it. There are other people also thinking about the same thing. So step 4. Now she comes to a hypothesis, an educated guess. What is a hypothesis? An educated guess. Based on what she read in step 3, the other scientific research articles from other researchers, she now makes an educated guess. Maybe students who practice speaking every week will improve their oral fluency or speaking ability more than students who will only do written exercises in an English course. That's her educated guess comes from the reading. But now she doesn't sit and sleep with this idea, with this educated guess. She wants to test it. So she has one group where she keeps taking their grammar test in the classroom, so nothing happens with them. And the other group gets her medicine. Here, the solution or the medicine she wants to test whether that works is, let's say you practice speaking English every week. Will that improve your speaking ability? So that's the second group. The second group practices English every week, and the other group does not. And then finally, she takes the data after a few weeks, and she compares the result from one group with the other group. And if she finds some finding, and she reports that. Does this sound familiar? Many of you have had this exact observation in your own classrooms. The difference between you and the researcher is the researcher follows these steps, and tonight I'm going to show you how you can follow them in your research as well. Okay, don't hate me, but I have more words for you again. So please, if you're overwhelmed already, bear with me. I have some words that will clarify your confusion. Let's talk about some of these important keywords in research. So when a study is finished, we get something called findings, which is basically results. Now, here's an important concept, generalizability. A finding is generalizable if it applies to other people or population or context, not just one group you studied. For example, if that Dhaka teacher I just gave example of in the previous slide, if that Dhaka teacher finds that speaking tasks help her students improve English, can that finding help all the students of class 8 in Bangladesh? Maybe or maybe not. We don't know yet, but that depends on how the study is designed. But as a researcher, like me, like you, if you want to really do research, we aim for something called a generalizable knowledge or finding. That means if you make a medicine and if your patients are improving, that medicine, if used by other schools or even other countries, they should get benefit out of it, not only your students. So we want to find things with our time and energy because research takes so much energy and time to do. It's so hard. So we want to find things that are not only true for us or for your small sample size, for your only, let's say, 30 participants or students, but your solution, your finding should be used by as many people as possible in the other part of the towns, other countries, even the whole world. That should be your target usually. But ideally, we don't usually aim for the whole world. We keep it, let's say, within a country or a few countries most of the time. Okay. Now, so you might be wondering at this point, then, how do I come up with research questions? Any idea? You can share in the chat. How do you come up with a good research question? Do you wake up in the morning and you sit in a meditation or in a yoga posture and do you think about it? Does it come from your head? When we take showers, sometimes we become a great singer and sometimes great ideas come from our head. So does it come from our shower or from a good meditation, from a walk? No. Or overthinking? Not really. So that's the first misconception, right? So here are the steps how you actually find a research question. So the first step is that you have an interest in a topic, a very, very passionate interest. It shouldn't be an interest given by your professor that, hey, you are in my class, do a research project. That will not work. You really have to have an interest personally that, okay, I want to know. And that interest usually comes from suffering from something. Let's say you are a victim of bad English classes. So now you want to find a solution, or you are teaching students and you see their problems and you want to do something about it. So you need interest in a topic. And the second step is that you read what has been done on the topic. You don't overthink about it. You read it, okay? You start reading, you go to Google Scholar, which is a website, you type your question and a lot of studies will come out and you will be surprised that, wow, you are not the only person thinking about the same problem. There are hundreds of people thinking about it. So we should, read them. Not read to gain knowledge per se, but to see that our question has been entertained and discussed by so many wonderful people and we should listen to them, right? So you can go to Eric, you can go to database, what are they? You can Google and find out. I will not focus on them because of the time, but you can also choose your favorite journal. You see, journal is like a magazine. I don't know if you remember, but if you had a favorite magazine, sometimes we used to wait for the next publication or the next series. So if you go to a journal right now, any journal, you'll see every month, almost every 3 months or so, they will publish new latest studies in the world about SLA, language teaching, testing, everything. And I recommend you find your favorite journal and keep browsing through it every month or every time you can get a chance. And slowly you can get oriented with the standard of research, what people are talking about, what's the latest research coming out. You can see all that. So keep a record of key points and quotes. You can make a spreadsheet, you can make a Google Doc or just a Microsoft Word file and write what you are reading, basically taking notes, nothing else, nothing serious, but don't make it boring. Like as you read through, read fast, just get oriented with the research, how to read, because if reading becomes so boring and hard, if it's going over 2 hours, then the chances are high you will never read it again or you will give up. So make it simple, keep it simple, don't overthink it, don't make it too complicated, keep it simple. Now, here's the cheat code. In every research article, you will find a section, you have introduction, body paragraphs, conclusion, limitation. They have a section called limitations. Sometimes they have a section called future studies. So guess what? You don't actually have to come up with the research questions. As you read the research articles, they are already giving you research questions or future project ideas for free. Yes, for free. Future studies should do this and that. Limitations of my study is this and that. So I'm inviting new researchers like you to do projects on this area. That's it. Now you are getting a good idea for your personal research. So again, read more, keep reading, and now you know what has been done and what still needs to be done. So research questions should come from reading, not from your head, not from overthinking, from reading. So I hope from my webinar, at least you take away this message. How do you come up with a good research question? Let me show you a bad research question. Let's say a weak research question and a strong one. Let's not call it a bad one. It's a good one. Every question is a good question, I think. So here's something very practical, the difference between a weak research question and a strong one. Look at this left side of my screen. It says, how can we improve English teaching in Bangladesh? Is this a research question? Yeah, but is it a good one or a strong one? Not really. The topic is too broad, too big. What do you mean by improve? Improve English, what part of English? Do you mean listening, speaking, reading, writing? What exactly? I don't know. And even if you say English writing, but writing what? Grammar, composition, sentence structure, what exactly? You see, there's a lot of variables are not mentioned. By the way, the word variable means the exact language feature you want to test. What is the meaning of variable? It means exactly something that you want to test, the very specific components in your study. But here, we don't see this exact variable, right? We don't see the exact language feature, no specific mention of it. But here's an example of a strong research question. To what extent, that means to what degree does weekly peer speaking practice, peer means your classmates. So to what extent weekly speaking practice with your classmates affect oral fluency scores among class 9 students in Dhaka? Now we exactly know what you are testing. Oral fluency scores. So they are going to do some group activities probably, and we'll get some speaking fluency score results from their recording or from their performance. So we know exactly what we're testing, who we are testing, class 9 students, and where in Dhaka. So we know all that. So the questions are very specific. So I have another engagement question for you. Let me type that in the chat, and please feel free to reply. Again, please feel free to reply in the chat. Feel free to engage with other researchers or teachers in the chat. As I keep talking, from my side, I sometimes don't see what you guys are writing, but that's fine. In the Q&A session, I will do that. So here's the second question. Think about your personal research interest. Type one topic in the chat, just a topic, not a full question yet. Something like speaking anxiety, grammar teaching, or vocabulary learning. What do you really want to study? What do you really want to find more about? Investigate from your genuine curiosity. What do you want to work with? What do you want to solve or research for your students or for yourself? for any people, population. So there's a question in the chat. Please write your responses there, and I'll let me move on with my next topic. Maybe I can quickly take a look at for other responses when I asked. So in your classroom, what is one thing you have observed in your students' English that you find interesting or puzzling? So one respondent says, responder said, many students tend to imitate native accents, which sounds unnatural and imposed. I think we should rather focus on fluency and accuracy. Exactly. And that is the world of research. The whole field of second language acquisition is moving to acknowledging that our accent, Bangladeshi accent or second language accent, is perfectly valid, and we shouldn't compare with native speakers, like that means like American English or British English. We should be proud of with our own accent. To be honest, Indian English is already established, and they're so much comfortable with their accent variety. So we should be thinking about it. Mixture of English with dialect, not standard in Bangla. Interesting. Whatever the method of teaching is, some students engage themselves in learning process and others don't. I'm wondering what can be done to get all the learner engaged. Yes, learner engagement is a big topic in research. There has been work done here. Very interesting topic. Some students lowered their voices at a significant level so that what they have pronounced cannot be understood clearly. If they lack relevant English words or fail to structure a correct sentence, they might think it will help them to get comfortable state. Yes, I agree. Excellent. So I can see some of you are interested with translingual pedagogy, discourse analysis, the effect of language on thinking process. Yes, please let me know what your research interests are in the chat, comment, and also you can see what other people have mentioned. Do that. That will keep you engaged, not distracted. So, okay, let's move on. So how do you make a good research question? Here are the practical steps. First, based on what you are reading, again, your research questions are coming from not your personal opinion, not from overthinking about it. Your professor asked you to find a research question and you are not reading anything. That's not how it works. You don't spend 7 days just thinking about it and you come back with a question. That's not how it works. It comes from based on reading the literature. And again, the word literature here means research articles. So what variables or what specific language feature component, for example, speaking skills, what part of speaking skills or what part of writing skills you want to study, you have to find out from reading again, not again thinking. Whose language use you want to study, the population. The population basically means what country you are focusing. Is it Bangladesh? Is it India? Is it US? What is the, let's say, are you focusing on high school, undergrad, or university students? Who are your sample or population? You have to think about it. And then you can formulate 1 or 2 research questions like, for example, to what extent does X, for example, X affect Y among my population Z? What is the relationship between X and Y? How does X influence Y in the context of Z? So this question structure forces you to be specific. They forces you to name your variable and your population. Another misconception. Do I need a brand new research idea? Answer is no, you don't. Let me talk about something that will change your thinking or idea about research. Many of you, even at least I did, this mistake. I know this because I was I did the same mistake. So many of you think research is like starting a business. You think, let's say you think sometimes, you think you need to sit alone in a room and think very hard and come up with a brilliant, brand new idea that nobody ever thought of. That is wrong. That's not how it works. Here's a sequence here. You see how it does sequential process. If you try to do this in second language acquisition or SLA research, you will probably invent something that was already discovered in 1980s. So you might be thinking your problem or your idea is very much new. Nobody ever thought of it. In second language acquisition in our field, it's very, very rare that nobody ever thought of your idea. So somebody probably already thought about it and talked about it and wrote about it. Somebody already tested it. So research is not about inventing a conversation. Research is about joining one. And I hope at least you learned this from my webinar of tonight, that you are joining an ongoing discussion or conversation. Look at this diagram. As you can see, it starts with the observation. Then you have a question, and then you read research, and then you enter in the conversation, right? So imagine this. I call it a second language research party. You see on the screen, there are some people, some excellent researchers and scholars are sitting together in a round table session and talking to each other. So imagine a loud, crowded party. This is called, let's say, SLA party. And let's say some famous scholars are here already, same famous professors, big name. For example, Noam Chomsky, and you probably know that name at least, Chomsky, Universal Grammar. So he has been at this party for, let's say, last 60 years. And then let's say another person named Stephen Krashen is arguing with somebody in the corner. Let's say they're having a debate or a fight here. And thousands of other researchers and teachers are also debating in the middle of the room. What should you do? Yeah, I'm asking exactly you, my participants today. Respectfully, what should you do? Now, let's say if you are run into a room and shout, hey, I have an idea, what will happen? Everyone will stop and stare at you. They will be like, wow, who's this person? Who's this guy? Everyone will stop and stare at you because you are interrupting. You are disrespectful. Nobody knows who you are, and nobody knows if your idea is new or if someone said something, the same thing 30 years ago. So know that our researchers should be humble. We should have humility. That means we should acknowledge that I probably don't know anything and somebody already figured things out. I have to at least check it. So research is polite. Real research is humble. So step one is that you enter the room quietly, okay? That means you start reading about research articles. Step two, you listen and you hear what other people are already arguing about. Oh, for example, they are discussing about how anxiety affects grammar learning, for example. And so you hear it. Again, here the listening means, again, reading research articles. It's a hypothetical situation, of course. Number three, you wait for a gap, a research gap. As you keep listening to the discussions that the researchers are having, you notice that, interesting, that they're talking about anxiety in language learning, but maybe they're not talking about something here. But again, it came after you were listening, okay? You didn't just figure it out on your own. So number four, you propose that you say, hey, excuse me, sir, can I propose an idea? I notice the same thing you guys are noticing. But have you considered this possibility that this can happen? So you engage in the discussion. You see, that's how you actually engage in a research. That that researchers are already having a talk, and you are simply listening to them and trying to get inside in their discussion, respectfully and slowly. So that's how the research works. So reading research paper is not a homework. It's listening to a conversation so that you don't embarrass yourself. You don't make a fool out of yourself by saying something that is already said by somebody else. Here's my question for engagement for this slide, feel free to respond to my question. So let me ask you honestly in the chat, please see the chat. There's a question and please respond. Type just simply yes or no this time. Have you ever come up with a research idea without reading the literature first? Have you ever came up with a research question without reading any research, simply from your personal observation? Just reply yes or no, okay? And see what other people are replying. Again, please get engaged. It will help you to not lose your attention span. We are dealing with a low attention span in this generation, so please get engaged. Okay. So a literature review is not a book report. So what is a literature review? Again, the word literature basically means scientific articles for our field. And when you're writing your literature review in a research, what is it exactly? In my daily work, I help with doctoral level students, masters or graduate level students on how to fix their literature review. And here's what I have seen continuously, multiple times, the same mistakes they're doing, that they think literature review is like a book report, a list of the studies you read, as if like you're showing off that, yes, I read 10 studies. Wow, congratulations. No, that's not how it works. So let me then talk about what literature review really is, because many students, even graduate students, get it wrong. So on the left side of the screen, for example, one student wrote something like this. They studied these 3 articles and they wrote, okay, Smith 2020 found this, Jones 2021 found this, Ali 2021 found this. It's like a shopping list. It shows that you read things. That's it. Like, okay, I acknowledge, I am proud that you read 3 articles. Great. But here is a good sample of a literature review. Research shows that speaking remains the weakest skill among Bangladeshi EFL learners. And this information came from 2 researchers, Smith and Ali. Again, imaginary, I made it up. While several studies have examined grammar instructions, few have explored whether interactive speaking tasks improve fluency. So this gap suggests something. So notice something here. This is an argument. So an argument basically means you can imagine yourself almost like a lawyer presenting a legal case in a courtroom. So then how do you read a literature review? Or how do you make a literature review? I keep telling my students, here's the sequence. You can memorize it with me. What we know, what we do not know yet, but we need to know. And that's how comes my present study. That's the sequence of your literature review writing. You see in a research article, when you write the introduction and then the chapter 2 is literature review. There, this is the sequence. What we know from existing studies, what we do not know yet, but we need to know. And that's comes the present study. So as I already told you, the right path is that you don't just come up with a research question and you search for research articles. That's what even I did in my first few projects. So please don't do that. Do not come up with a question and then backtrack or back search the research article supporting it. That's almost like a confirmation bias that you are trying to find evidence that to prove yourself right. That's not how it should be. Rather, you read widely about a problem and you discover already the research articles are already giving away the research questions, and from that reading should come the research question, not the other way around. So your research question should mirror the literature review. Okay. So this is a possible section on, for example, how do you write your literature review? For example, if your question is to what extent does peer speaking practice affect oral fluency among class 9 EFL learners in Dhaka, then your literature review should follow exactly all the components sequentially. So your section 1 could talk about research on peer speaking practice. Section 2 could talk about oral fluency and so on. So every word in your research question must appear in your literature review. Okay, so I'm not going to, because of the sake of time, I'll just move on to the important part. I think I already touched about it. So, okay. So now let's talk about the magic word, the framework, the word that you are here for, the title of this presentation. But just for fun, I called it how to make a biryani, let's say. Now, why did I do that? Why analogy with a biryani? Imagine you want to cook biryani and you need a recipe. So research is the same. You need a recipe called a theoretical framework. So a theoretical framework is your recipe for cooking biryani. The research is the cooking, the data is the ingredients, method is how you cook. So if we are joining our scientific process that already has theories, how do we connect to our small study to that huge body of knowledge? We choose a theoretical framework. Again, as you can see, the 10 sequences I have listed here. Here's how we enter, and here's how we choose a framework. So what is a theoretical framework then? What's the definition? A theoretical framework is a structure and a wall, just like this image, that supports the theory or theories you use in your study. So as you can see in the picture, it's like somebody's making a brick wall. So each of these brick are, let's say, a single theory or multiple theories. And as you piece it together, it becomes your wall or structure or your theoretical framework for your research. So it's part of your research where you explain which theory you are using, why you choose it, how it guides your study. Again, if you're totally lost what's happening in my presentation right now, you don't have any idea, you lost track. A theoretical framework or theory, all this comes from your reading research articles. As you keep reading, you'll get familiar with how people are working with this theoretical framework and why you should use it, how should you use it. Everything will come very clearly as you keep reading. So how everything then connects. So as you can see at the very top, in your research project, you need a theoretical framework. So this is your lens for investigating the topic. For example, a sociocultural framework says learning happens through, let's say, social interaction. So you choose this lens and everything, below it follows. Then you choose a method. Again, everything, like what method should I choose? What data should I collect? How do I interpret it? Every one of your questions should be answered from other previous studies, not from your pure personal logic. I hope that you got it like clearly, that every questions you have about research should be answered by other previous research articles and questions. We are simply replicating or following or getting inspiration from them. So that's how the process works. Okay. Now, how do I connect it to the circular model of research? So this is the moment we entered the scientific cycle. So take a look at this step 4, choosing a framework. So you have an observation, you have a question, research question, and you studied research articles. Now you choose a framework so that we can connect our study to the knowledge that already exists. For example, if you study how group work helps speaking, you might use sociocultural theory, let's say, because it explains learning through interaction. But again, what theoretical framework you're going to choose should be informed by your readings. So here are some important key terms for theoretical framework. So theoretical framework, again, is the wall. Hypothesis is the something that you can test. The construct is a specific concept within a framework. And a model is a description of how the theories or the parts are interacting with each other. I don't want to go too much detail into it. This will be entirely then a research methodology class. But I just wanted to quickly show you how it looks like. So now a big question. Who cares about SLA? Why should we care about second language acquisition, language learning problems? What are the important big questions that needs to be answered even right now? Continuously, we are puzzled about it. The puzzles that drive SLA research are this. The students need meaningful exposure to English, but how much and what kind? Learners make the same types of error in the same order. Why? Teaching grammar rules doesn't always lead to fluent use. Why not? Students in the same class end up at a very different levels. Why? These are the questions that the researchers, even in 2026, still tries to answer using different theoretical frameworks. There are a lot of theoretical frameworks that exist, but these 5 theoretical frameworks that you can see on your screen here, Krashen, interlanguage, sociocultural, cognitive, usage-based approach. These are very popular theoretical frameworks. You can think of them as like a menu in a restaurant. You can choose the one that fits your research. We don't just cherry pick because, wow, Krashen is very popular, so I should take it. That's not how it works, right? So the first framework, if I can quickly give you an overview, is Krashen's input hypothesis. So who invented it? The person name is Stephen Krashen in the 1980s. So this is probably the most famous theory in all of SLA. So Krashen's core idea is this: we acquire language when we receive input that is slightly above our current level. He calls it I plus 1. If you are at level I, you need input I plus 1. That means we need some input that is not too easy and not too hard. That's how we actually learn. If the things the teachers are teaching are too hard, we will not learn. If it's too easy, we will not learn. What puzzle does it explain? So the puzzle it explains is this: that students need meaningful exposure, but how much and what kind? This is the question this theory or this framework is trying to answer. So in your classroom, my question for you is this: let's say your students scored 80% on grammar, but cannot speak. That's, I think, like a huge problem in Bangladesh. Good grammar results, but cannot speak. Krashen says that they learned rules, but never acquired the language through meaningful input for speaking, let's say. So maybe you can make a research question like this: to what extent does extensive listening to graded readers improve comprehension among immediate EFL learners? That could be one way to do it. So that's Krashen for you. The second one I want to introduce here is interlanguage theory. You can actually call it interlanguage construct, by the way. Some people call it a construct. So this is the theory number 2, or construct number 2. Larry Selinker in 1972. So interlanguage is a foundational concept in SLA, so foundational that you will find it showing up inside many different frameworks. I'm giving it in its own slide because it changed how we think about language learner errors, how we think about errors or mistakes. Before Selinker, people thought language errors were bad. Errors meant the students was failing. Errors needed to be corrected immediately. But Selinker said, no, learners don't just speak a broken version of English. They create their own internal grammar system. They called it interlanguage. It's not their first language. It's not Bangla. It's not the target language. It's not English. It's something in between. And here's the transformative part. This interlanguage is systematic. It has rules. It makes sense. It just follows different rules than native language or native English. For example, when a child learning English says, I goed, I-G-O-E-D, goed instead of I went, is that a random mistake? Not really. That child has learned in the past tense, they learned about past tense rules and added ed to the verbs. So they're actually showing an evidence of learning, not necessarily a failure. So Selinker introduced the concept of fossilization as well. I don't want to go too deep into it. But my question for you is that what puzzling phenomena in SLA does it solve or answer? It was the puzzle number 2. Learners make the same types of errors in the same order because they're building a grammar step by step, and each stage has its own logic. So in your classroom, I'm asking you, the teachers and the researchers present in my webinar here, every time you see a mistake, try to ask, what rule has this student created? If you see a grammar mistake, you ask this question: what does error tell me about their interlanguage? So that's the theory of interlanguage and how you can use it. The third one is Sociocultural Theory by Lev Vygotsky and applied to SLA by James Lantoff. So what's this one about? So you remember Krashen said learning is about input going into the brain, but Selinker here said, for example, learning is about what happens inside the brain. But here Vygotsky is saying, wait, learning does not happen inside the individual. It happens between people through social interaction, communication. So the key concept here is the zone of proximal development, another big word, ZPD. This is a beautiful idea. So this ZPD, or zone of proximal development, is a space between what a learner can do alone and what they can do with some help. So let me give you an example. Imagine a student who cannot write an essay by herself. She sits alone and she produces nothing. But when she sits with a more advanced students who helps her, who says, what do you want to say first? Okay, how about starting this sentence? Suddenly she can write. The essay gets written. So what happened? She was in her zone of proximal development. She couldn't do it alone, but she could do it with some help. The help, the more advanced students' guidance. That's called scaffolding. So like the scaffolding around a building during a construction, it supports you while you are learning, and then gradually it's removed. So what puzzle does it solve? The puzzle number 3. There are limits on what instructions or instructors like us can do alone. Why? Because a teacher lecturing in front of a room is not enough. Learning requires interaction, talking in real life in the society. So between students and teacher, we need to have a lot of interaction. So in your classroom, how do you then use this theory? That is a question for you. The fourth framework that we have here is called cognitive or information processing. This is probably the easiest one to understand because you already experience it every day. So this one is made famous by Robert B. Kaiser and John Anderson. Think about driving, think about riding a bicycle or cooking. When you first learned how to drive or how to ride a bicycle, you had to think about every single thing, right? How to, like hold the bike, how to pedal, everything. You had to learn step by step. How much attention you had to put, so much effort you had to give, right? So you were using something called a declarative knowledge. You knew the rules that I have to do this and then I have to do that. But now if you, after 1 year of driving, I don't know, driving a car or riding a bicycle, now it's automatic, right? You don't have to think about it. It just happens so naturally, so automatically. So that's the key idea of this theoretical framework or this theory, that your students can tell you like the rules when it becomes automatic. So you can tell from your students that, okay, what grammar rules I have taught them are now automatic in their brain. So what bridges this gap? Practice, meaningful repeated practice, not just memorization of grammar rules, but using the grammar rule again and again and again in real life. It becomes automatic. And that's how you can speak too fast. You can write naturally. And the authors here, they call it automatization, almost like an automatic pilot mode. So what puzzle does it solve? The puzzle number 3 again, but from different angle than sociocultural theory. It's not that instruction doesn't work. It's that instruction gives you a declarative knowledge. Only practice converts it to a procedural knowledge or real life skill. So maybe a research question could be, does increased oral practice lead to greater automaticity in English question formation for Bangladeshi learners? That kind of question you can ask. The last framework that we can talk about is usage-based approaches from Michael Tomasello and John Bybee or Bibi, I don't know how to pronounce that name, but that's the last framework I want to bombard you with. Again, I thank you for holding your attention span. There's a lot of information in this short time, but That's the last framework I promise. So this framework says something that directly challenges the way English is taught in many Bangladeshi classrooms, by the way. It says language is not a set of abstract rules that you memorize and then apply. Language is learned through frequency, patterns, and meaningful use. Think about how children learn their first language. Does anyone sit a 2-year-old kid with a 2-year-old kid and says, okay, today we'll learn subject verb agreement? No, the child hears thousands of examples every day, right? Mama is sitting, papa is going here, daddy is sleeping, and the child hears the pattern again and again and again, and eventually it becomes in their automatic memory. So usage-based theory says L2 learning works the same way. The more you encounter in real life a pattern, the more deeply you learn it. So the frequency matters. So what does it mean for our grammar translation then? It means that memorizing grammar tables is not efficient. And what puzzle does it solve? Puzzle number 4. Students in the same class end up at very different levels. Why? Because they have had different amounts of and types of exposures outside their classroom. So if you can connect your questions with this theory, you can definitely use it. So the last thing I want to show you is this. For example, you have a research questions like this. Bangladeshi students struggle to speak English despite years of instruction. A single question, but you can use any of this theoretical framework to explain it. Maybe the reason Bangladeshi students struggle to speak English after all of years of instructions, maybe Krashen, according to Krashen, not enough comprehensible input. According to interlanguage construct, speaking grammar is still developing. It's not an error. Their bad English is still actually a development. Sociocultural angle could be not enough meaningful interaction. Cognitive angle could be rules are not automatized. Usage-based could be not enough pattern exposure. So you see, you can answer a single research question with different angles. But of course, you have to choose one and read thoroughly about it to answer it. Which one is the most true? There's nothing like that. None of it is like the single truth here. There are multiple ways of answering a same puzzle. So same classroom, same frustration, 5 different studies can happen from a single question. So this is how you choose your framework. Then you read and you notice and you ask and then you figure it out. So your action steps for this week is that you go to Google Scholar, find one study in your area, and you write down their research question, their theoretical framework, what did they find, especially what future project ideas they gave you, all that. So thank you so much. I think I should end it here to give you more question times, but that's pretty much it from my side. Feel free to ask any questions with your speaker on, or you can type it in the chat. I'll be now answering your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raihan. It's a complete coverage of theoretical framework focusing on second language acquisition as the context. All right. You have wonderfully explained 5 theoretical frameworks. All right. And you have demonstrated through a research question how these 5 frameworks can be connected to address the research question. All right. For a variety of purposes, because each theoretical framework is basically projecting one particular angle related to the research question. So wonderful session that you have conducted. So before we start the research, the question answer session, may I request all the participants to turn on your camera for a photograph? And meanwhile, Raihan, could you please stop screen sharing? So may I request all the participants to turn on your camera so that you can take a photograph? It's a moment to capture. Yes, may I request everybody to turn on your camera so that you can, yeah, and the photo will be shared with all of you. Yeah, because we have your email addresses. Okay, thank you so much. Raihan, you can also take photographs, okay? All right. Now, I invite questions from the participants to to Mr. Raihan Rahman. So please feel free to ask questions because we can learn better actually through the uh, question answer sessions. All right. So please go ahead with your questions.
Yes, feel free to ask questions. You can ask it in Bangla as well. Don't get afraid with English. Again, be proud of your English. As I said, errors is not a mistake, it's a development. And if you're not feeling so comfortable, you can always write the questions in the chat. But yeah, feel free to ask a question in Bangla, in Banglish, in all English. We don't judge here. And no question is a bad question. Every question is a good question. So feel free.
Exactly. So please go ahead with your questions. Anybody?
Yeah, Zarin, please go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you so much for this wonderful session. So it has been really helpful. So here we got this, like as I am currently a lecturer at East West University, so I have done a few researches. So for theoretical framework, we are using that. But yeah, it is very helpful as well, like how we can connect with theoretical framework with the researches. But I also wanted to see, like like we start with theoretical framework, but then there's like a section that we have to show the detailed association between the research ideas and the theoretical framework. And then when we also write the discussion and findings section, then we have to again reconnect it how my theoretical framework. So I find it most difficult in that side. So will there be any other webinar or anything that I can see in details, like in the like theoretical framework particular part where I have to show how is it associated, and then in the findings section to reconnect it. So yeah.
Will there be other webinars? That's Strifle sir can answer that part.
Okay, Jane, wonderful question. This is a very, very necessary question. All right. So, uh, before Raihan answers Zain's questions, all right, Zarin's question, I have a simple question to ask. So, what's the connection between theoretical framework and research methodology? All right. So, how research methodology is influenced by the choice of the theoretical framework? What's the connection between these two? And what aspects of the research methodology, what elements of research methodology should be influenced by the theoretical framework I have chosen for a particular study?
Right. So again, like I'm assuming all this confusion and these questions are coming from because, again, very respectfully saying that our research questions should come from, again, not from us, but from reading. So as we keep reading the latest publications, the studies, you already will be informed what the theories are used, the frameworks are used, why are they using it, they're justifying it. You don't have to do literally anything as a researcher. You just go there and you just listen to it, you just read it, and you are trying to add something a little more. That's pretty much it. So as you keep reading your favorite research articles, some of my professor even told me that, Raihan, please choose your favorite researchers in a field. By the way, remember, we are not dealing with mathematics or physics. There's no 1 + 1 = 2 here anymore. There's no perfect answers here. It's all like a legal case. We are actually almost like a lawyer presenting our core cases in a courtroom. So if that's the case, then we should follow a tradition. So this framework, these theories are actually a tradition, a culture. None of them are perfect. And how do we choose one then? We are choosing the one we mostly align with. And it comes from our vast reading. So to answer Zarin's question, then how do I justify my findings with the theoretical frameworks? Look, again, you are not justifying anything. You are already reading what you found. Let's say you read 10 research articles about your finding about students' anxiety, why students are anxious about speaking English. You already know what they're finding about. And now you collect a little more data, and that data should already tell you, do they agree with the findings? Do they disagree with the findings? Because of time, I actually couldn't show a slide, but your findings should either agree, disagree, or contradict or complicate some findings. Let me see if I still have it.
Meanwhile, can I ask Jarina a question?
There you
Because
go.
she has already completed some research projects.
Sure.
So Jarin, but very simple question. All right. For example, you are designing the instruments for data collection. So what guides you to design the instruments for data collection? So you get guided by what while you are designing the instruments for data collection?
Well, thank you, sir, for the question. So you want to know, like, how do I make my instrument or design? Okay. So
So, for
basically,
example, you're just designing a survey questionnaire, or you're designing a focus group discussion guidelines, all right, or you are designing a reflective journal writing template. So these are three instruments. So while you are designing these instruments, all right, how you should be guided to design the instruments?
okay. Basically, of course, like here also I try to associate with the theoretical framework. For example, if I want to test about the anxiety, it like I had one particular research. It was about the attitudes of undergraduate and graduate English major students about the uh, native and non-native English accent. So then I made the three groups here. One about their opinions about the native accent, another one about non-native accent, and then the third one was its relation. So as I had like connected with this native speakers in this particular theory, so then based on this, like what I want to test, like I wanted to test their opinion about what native speakers on these three keywords, non-native, and it's their relationship or their identity formation through that. So linking like that with the theoretical framework, I try to make questions. But then again, when I do go through other researches, so what particular thing they wanted to know, so based on that, I try to find. Although sometimes it's like their particular research, their particular survey questions or interview questions, we don't get it in the research papers. So sometimes I feel a bit lost in that sense, but then I try to like what they found based on their findings and what they looked into, I try to make these things. And then
Wonderful.
here,
Thank you very much.
yeah,
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
and here there's like one book. It's like it's by Craswell. Like I forgot the exact name, but it is probably educational research. And then there is some rules here as well, like what kinds of options you can have. Like for example, you can't have the double barrel questions, and then you cannot use the double negative. So also I do this, but then again, as it's the most I mean, from my perspective, it's the most difficult part in a research to come up with the proper uh, survey questions or interview questions, otherwise
Okay,
the
no
result
problem.
gets
No
wrong.
problem.
So then I try to also talk to the people like my teachers or the people who are do researching to see like if I have come up with the correct forms of survey questions or interview questions.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Let me address Sajid's question. Okay. So Sajid's question is, can I use multiple theories in one particular study? Okay. So my yes. All right. So it depends on the research problem and the research question actually will provoke you to identify the appropriate relevant theories. So for example, I'm now currently uh, working on a project, and my project is basically English language teacher education in Bangladesh. And I have chosen four theories. All right. So justice theories, then ethics theories, equality theories, theories of equality, then theory of diversity, and theory of inclusion. So I have chosen JD theories. JD is justice, equality, diversity, and inclusion. So for my theoretical framework has been designed integrating four theories. And the question I asked Jarin is, how your research methodology, particularly the instruments that you're going to use for data collection, are guided by theoretical framework. So what I think all this theory actually and the concepts in the theories. So based on the concepts that I have noted, okay, so I'm using them to design the instruments for data collection because I'm trying to understand the problem of English language teacher education in Bangladesh through these four theories. All right. And these theories are basically guiding me to design my research methodology, to develop the instruments, all right, and to collect data based on the theoretical framework. Okay, so that's basically the connection, right? For example, Raihan has demonstrated that your research is basically on second language acquisition. So whatever problem you address in your study, the research question you design. So these are the key theories in SLA. All right, the four theories Raihan has shared with us. All right. So once you read all these theories, five theories, all right. So you can connect at least two, three theories to your research question. And if you read them thoroughly, you'll come across numerous variables. You'll come across plenty of concepts. You have to note them. And based on them, you have to design your instruments for data collection. So that's my stake on this. So Raihan, did I address it accurately?
Yes, sir.
Raihan, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can. There are some good questions in the chat. I was trying to answer them, but I guess
So
I can
please.
answer it here directly. So for all the people. Okay. So the question is asked from Shaolin. Is it necessary to include a theoretical framework in all linguistic research, or can it be presented more generally before the methodology section? Excellent question. The answer is yes. So as I was showing the steps of the scientific research, maybe I can show you that slide one more time and we can recall it. So here, yeah, I guess now you can see it. So again, like jump in to ask further clarification questions, but as you can see, what you said is that, can it be more presented? So again, your question, I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, respectfully, I'm assuming that you actually invent the research question first, and then you try to find readings or research articles that agrees or disagrees with your question, and then you try to see, okay, what theoretical framework fits me. No, it should be the other way around. You start reading without any questions in mind, just an interest in the topic. A topic interest doesn't mean a question. Let's see, maybe Shaolin, you can respond. What's your research question in research topic interest? Is it speaking, reading, writing?
Yes, thank you, sir. So it was about discourse analysis. So I was assuming it's an excellent presentation. So
Okay.
that's it. Thank you for clarification. I was just wondering where I should add more respectfully before adding the methodology section. So thank you for the clarification. That's
Okay. So, so my personal experience is this, that you actually also, by the way, nobody's working alone here. All your researchers, you are working with a supervisor, your professors, right? So you just go to them with a research topic interest that, yeah, I want to work with, let's say, discourse analysis. They usually give you some suggested research readings, or they help you to find some readings. Let's say they gave you 10 research articles to read. After you read them, from those research articles, you'll find lots of questions, and then you choose one. And as you already are reading them, that's how you find the theoretical framework already given there. You just copy it, you just follow it. That's pretty much it. And then, yeah, basically that's the process. The next question is from Shoshi. Says, there could be a possibility that an undergrad or grad student in the Europe has worked on the same topic as I have, or maybe some researchers had been done it already as a thesis. Yes, true, but hasn't published yet. I do not know it about it. In that case, would my research lose credibility? Absolutely no. By the way, replication, no. Replication, I don't know if you guys know about it, but replication research is rising. I work in my university, I work with a titan in SLA named Luke Plonsky, a big name in professor. He has 99,000, I guess, citation. But anyway, he promotes replication studies. Look, we are working with science. If what Shoshi found in their research, if I do the same research and I find the same thing, that is a good thing for science. That means we're not doing with magic or any spiritual thing. We are working with reliable scientific measures. So you don't care. You shouldn't care if somebody already did it or found something. I mean, maybe in your reading you should care, but if you can produce the same result, there are journals, they are happy to publish it. And that's probably a new information. So that's why you don't need to have a brand new idea. Don't forget about it. Genia, question is, can you say shortly about the research discussion after analysis data following the theoretical framework? Yes. You know what? I think we should do more webinars on how to actually write. I can actually show you guys like a Microsoft document and show you how exactly the writing looks like, because that's the problem, right? You're hearing theories, but how does it look like in real life? Your discussion section is not a repetition of your results. You know, typically when we do write a research article, the typical structure is this IMRD. I'm replying to your response in the chat. Introduction, literature review, method, result, discussion. The literature review is where you showcase your case, your argument that I have read, let's say 10 research articles, and here's my argument is, here's my case is, that here's what they're talking about, and here's what my study will contribute. Then you do the data analysis, then you find the result. In your discussion, you don't talk about what you find, rather you talk about how your particular finding, it can happen like three things. Either it can agree, it can disagree, or it can complicate the previous or existing studies. That's what you talk about in the discussion. I hope that is a simple answer. How your finding agrees, disagrees, or complicates the studies you are reading. That's pretty much it. You don't repeat the result again and again. That was a big mistake even I did. Great question. By the way, feel free to ask more questions about how I do research, how I read, how I write. It doesn't have to be exactly about what theoretical framework. Feel free to write any more question or open your mic and jump in. That's fine.
Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. I have a question for basically if I have a topic in my mind, right? Then I will search for Google Scholar or any other databases for my topic. Then usually as a beginner, I usually collect the papers and then I want to read the abstract, as you said, and the conclusion for the summary idea. But what do you think? Could you please suggest that how could I faster my reading or connecting the literature review or theory in the writing the research paper? That's my question.
Great
because
question.
there's a lot of papers, right? But
yes,
we cannot connect this.
Yeah, perfect question. You know, I still struggle reading. I get overwhelmed. I lose my energy, my attention span, because it's not a TikTok video, right? Like it's boring, as simple as that. I'll admit, even after all my 3 years of reading research so far in master's and in PhD program, I still find it boring. But now, how do you make it, you know, like fast track it? That's your main question.
Yes,
you see, the trick is this: you actually don't do it alone. That's the main trick. You're supposed to be connected with a professor. So do you have somebody you're working with right now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So you all you need is just the topic interest. So you go to your professor. That's the first thing I do. I go to the professor and I ask, hey, give me 10 studies or 15 studies. They already have read so many studies. They already know what to read, at least the foundational studies. But of course, they will also ask you, hey, go to Google Scholar and do this research, type this search word and find some studies. But then now you have 50 studies to read. And reading one takes 2 hours sometimes because English is not our first language. And even reading after 2 hours, we don't understand anything. And then after 2 days, we forget everything we read. So many problems, right? So that's why you always need to be connected with a professor. And even better, if you have another research partner, like a co-author. So they will narrow it down. Never start reading without narrowing it down. Let's say you found on your own 20 research articles. I will email it to my professor and I'll ask them, hey, please, can you make it like, can you give me, like, narrow it down? You don't have to find it for me, but give me 5, like choose 5 for me here to get started with. So now you have only 5 studies to read. Now I'll suggest you, when you open your research article on a tab, what I do is that we now live in the age of AI, but again, use it wisely. So as you read it, I actually talk to the AI on the side. I ask it a question. I actually argue. I start an argument, literally. I start debating. I was like, for example, my first question usually is this. As I read an article, who cares? How does it really help me or a researcher? Really, does it really have any benefit, or is it just an entertainment of theoretical discussion? When I get answer from AI, because the AI can read it with me simultaneously, now I'm more motivated. Oh, okay, it matters because Bangladeshi students, again, as I said, like they have 12 years of English education but cannot speak. What's the like? Of course, we should care. So much money and teacher training is wasted. You know what's happening there, and why do we like white American teachers more than our own teachers? Why can't we accept our own students, as a new benchmark, new role model? Why do we have to follow an American or white or British person? These questions we should care, and then you'll feel more motivated. And as I read, I also take some notes. How to do the note taking is an entire webinar itself, by the way, but you're supposed to have a spreadsheet where you have a column like, okay, study name, let's say Fuad 2026. And here's the research question, here's the findings. And why should I care? How reading this article helps me with my project? That's another main question I keep asking myself, that I really want to know about this. Does this study really help me? Am I interested hanging out with this kind of scholar? And by the way, don't treat research article as a independent hanging out, like you think about the research authors as well. You investigate who they are as well, what university they're from, what are they doing in their other research areas. So you should have some celebrity researcher in your mind that, okay, I want to follow this group of researcher slowly. So I hope that gave you some more other side, how it works in my life.
So I have one question that is not answered yet. How can I basically connect the ideas? For example, I have narrowed down the 50 articles, right? And then read their abstracts and what they are studying, as you said. Then how can we combine these ideas into one literature review of my own paper? That's the basic problem.
So I think I clarified that your mindset should be like a lawyer, like an attorney in a legal court report, right? Let's say your client has been kicked out from your university, that his English is bad. Now your job is to save your client. So as you read, so your question is, how do you connect your ideas? Look, don't search for perfection. You are building a case. You, Fuad, will be defending your case. That's why we call it dissertation defense, thesis defense. Nobody will believe you, Fuad. Like when you present an argument, nobody will believe you. It's your job to make us believe your case, you see? That's how it works. The mindset should be like that I'm building a case that I have to defend it. It's not a perfect answer. So yeah, don't look for a perfect formula for me.
Okay, we have just 1 minute to wrap up. Just the last question from anybody.
There are 2 more questions, I think, in the chat. One is from Takia, one is from Shoshi. Takia, sorry.
Okay,
Takia Shoshi,
it's only 1.5 hours, so I
okay.
think you can contact Raihan. Raihan, can you share your contact details?
I can send my email, and feel free to ask me any email. Feel free to ask any questions about, I don't know, IELTS, TOEFL. I had TOEFL 29 score. I had IELTS 8. I taught IELTS and TOEFL in the Bangladesh, in the US. I helped many students.
So can you share your email address in the chat box, Raihan?
I did.
Okay.
It's my full name.
So yeah, you can contact Raihan, all right, if you have further questions, all right? So it's 1.5 hours now. So
Yes.
Raihan, thank you so much for joining from the other part of the world, all right, and sharing wonderful ideas on how to craft our theoretical framework. So this is a very, very integral section of the research project, all right, in the research paper. So you have shared wonderfully, and thank you all the participants for asking excellent questions and being with us for a long time. So with this, I would like to wrap up the session for today. So please keep in touch with us. We'll invite you for other webinars. And Raihan, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. And thank you, everyone. I really appreciate your attention and bearing with me. Thank you so much. Yeah. Have a great day. Good night.
Good night.